I know little baby fans are going to be hurt by that because he's still active, and Derrick Rose has played 23 games this season.
Right.
but I do think that, it's pretty close right there.
Okay, so I had Lil Baby down as well, but I
Okay.
had a different player, right? Karl Anthony Towns, okay.
Damn, I think that's worse.
Welcome back, people. This is Soundbites, the part of the Album Mode podcast where we're talking about the music, the culture, and the internet, and how those three things intertwine to create the music culture today. My name is Demar Grant, a.k.a. King Grant, a.k.a. The Bunny. And I'm joined by my esteemed co-host, co-creator, Adriel Smiley, a.k.a. AdrielSmiley.com, a.k.a. The Godfather, a.k.a. Mr. Smiley. Adriel, All-Star Weekend is over. Okay.
Yes.
We were talking about this, we were talking about doing something similar to this before All-Star Weekend. And then we had this incident with Yeat and my analogy I had for Yeat. And I became much more ardent. And I'm like, you know what? We need to talk about this again. We did part one of this a while ago, a few months ago, where we talked about rappers and their NBA equivalents.
Yes.
Okay. The NBA is back. We're in the home stretch. Hip hop has been making a little bit of having some moments early on in the year. So we're gonna make the analogies again. We're gonna draw the comparisons again. Okay. Do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
I think you should go first.
Okay. So I'll go first, and I'm gonna come back again with it.
Okay.
SGA and Yeat. Okay. I think that SGA, first of all, Yeat, I would say, is one of the hardest artists right now, right? I would consider him one of the leaders of the new school right now, right? Especially when it comes to rage music. And he's one of the best-selling artists right now in hip-hop. I think he's either got a number 1 or a number 2 for 2093.
Yes.
Right, or 2093, sorry. So, just like SGA, one of the leaders of the new school, right? He's going about his business. He's got his whole own wave. He's got his wave with the clothing, right? He's a style of play that I feel as though many people respect, but it's not explosive in the sense that it's like, oh my God, this person is taking over planet Earth. But they're actually one of the best players in the league. I think Yeat is one of the best rappers out right now when it comes to the music that he's releasing, right? I think SGA and Yeat synonymous. It's the same dude.
I super disagree. And I'm going to start with this. I think SGA is probably higher than Yeat. I think that's probably disrespectful to SGA because he's number 2 in MVP right now.
Right.
SGA, Yeat. Do you want to guess what Yeat is ranked in terms of, monthly listeners among all artists?
Okay. I'm going to go with 100.
That is very generous of you. He's at 262.
Right.
And the people around him are U2.
Oh my God. Okay, go ahead.
Flo Milli, D Block Europe, and Roddy Ricch.
Okay.
So Yeat, sure, but Yeat again. I think is more like an all-star good player, less of like an MVP candidate. When J. Cole had that line, your 30-song album sell a measly 100,000, Yeat was who he was talking about.
Oh my God.
So yeah, for me, I don't think that's fair. I do want to find one for Yeat though, and maybe we'll have another soundbites where I'll think of someone who's a better match. But I think Yeat is like, he's an all-star. He's really good. He's a popular player, but you see the potential of his skill matching up with his popularity. So
I think that just like SGA, because of the music that they make and because of the location that they play in and also make music from, they're underrated. I think I actually think SGA is super underrated by the general populace. Just like I think
do we still think that?
By the general populace. I'm not talking about.
He was voted into the All-Star game. Like,
I would say that if you went to an average person on the street, they're not going to be talking about SGA the way that they would be talking about somebody like I don't like obviously Steph or something like that. But
well, you're talking about all-time greats. He's a young player still, which I think matches with Yeat. Is still is a young guy. But I do think that SGA is closer to the top of, the entire sport,
Mm-hmm.
and Yeat is maybe the top of his subgenre.
Okay.
And that's
This is I feel like the future discussion happening all over again right now.
well, why I brought up his monthly listeners is because there are tons of rappers who are ahead of him in that. So
But are they as hot as him right now? Not really. He's one of the hottest ones right now.
I think this is one of those things where this is your timeline.
Okay, well, we'll see.
So I had one for this as well. Now, this one I almost didn't write down because I said I'm gonna piss off two fan bases at once with this.
Okay.
But the more I thought about it, it made sense to me. Okay, Lil Baby is Derrick Rose. Now, Derrick Rose had a historic run, even going back to high school. Historic run, very popular player, number one ranked, was number one pick even when he entered the draft. The youngest MVP ever, had this great run. Now, after that run, he had some flashes, but he was never the same. I think Lil Baby, you could argue he had his own MVP season with My Turn.
Right.
And that was his time where it's like, okay, he is the guy. He had his run with doing the tapes with Gunna, his singles leading up to that. But since My Turn, nothing's been the same. Now, he's had flashes.
Yeah.
There's been a song here, a verse here. He's not a nobody. We're not going to go crazy. But we have not seen that MVP Lil Baby since.
Right.
I think at the time, we thought it was a historic run on the way, and he would be one of the biggest trap rappers to ever do this.
Right.
Now, since then, we know what happened.
Right.
But I think that's a lot like Derrick Rose because, again, for the generation who's younger, they know Derrick Rose as he's popular. He's on Memphis now. He's been on a few teams. But Derrick Rose in his prime, the way they're talking about him was very different. So I think those two go together for me. I know Lil Baby fans are going to be hurt by that because he's still active, and Derrick Rose has played 23 games this season.
Right.
But I do think that it's pretty close right there.
Okay, so I had Lil Baby down as well, but
Okay.
had a different player, right? Karl Anthony Towns. Okay.
Damn, I think that's worse.
Lil Baby.
Oof.
Lil Baby and Karl Anthony Towns. Lil Baby, we were like, okay, Lil Baby, this is it.
Mhm.
This guy's gonna be the next dude, just like Towns. We thought this. We did think this when Karl Anthony Towns was coming out. We did think this.
No, what?
It was him and Anthony Davis. We were definitely thinking that. We were definitely like him and Anthony Davis are gonna become the next guys.
I was gonna say I think that Anthony Davis is what people thought that, and Karl Anthony Towns was like, okay, he's not gonna be that. Davis will, Towns won't. But you know what's funny? This is almost like the Denzel Curry one because, again, I don't remember everyone thinking that, and I've known about Karl Anthony Towns since he was in high school,
Right.
And I don't remember everyone being like he's gonna be the one. He was number one pick.
Yeah.
That happened.
Yep.
But I don't think people were thinking he was gonna be the one. I think pretty early it was like, he's good and we'll see.
Right. Well, from what I recall, it was like he's gonna become one of the next dudes, right? He's 7 foot tall, shoots threes like he's Dirk.
I think the basketball people you hang around, you gotta just really question.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think so. Okay.
Karl Anthony Towns as the guy.
I'm talking about early though, and that's the same thing with Baby. I think at the beginning,
Fair.
early, they were like, "Yo, this guy is like one of the next up," right? And then the person that they actually ended up partnered with superseded them, right? Gunna superseded Lil Baby.
Gunna is the Anthony Edwards here.
Yeah, Gunna became Edwards and superseded Baby, and we're like, Baby's like, yes, it was cool.
Does Towns have a My Turn? Does he have a season or a moment where it's like, because I understand the hype around him coming in because he was such a skilled big man.
Yeah.
It's like, how is he not going to be a great player? But did he have a moment when he actually was in the league, whether it's a season or a playoff run or a stretch where it was like, this is it? Because I think that's the Lil Baby thing is, when he was with Gunna Clump, he was good. But once My Turn came out, it was almost overnight where it was like, okay, he's the guy now.
Right.
So I don't know. Do you think Towns had a moment like that? Because I don't think so. I think if Towns had a moment like that, we would have other people to compare him to because I think he'd be viewed very differently.
Okay. I think for Towns, personally thinks when he won the 3-point shooting contest,
or the play-in game.
See, when the play-in, he's like, people are crying. They're like, I can't believe that we did this.
Oh, yeah.
See, for me, it's Towns. Okay.
Okay. What else you got next?
So my next one, this is one I've been sitting on for a while, and that I want to unleash. Jimmy Butler and Tyler Creator. Okay.
Very interesting.
At the very beginning of their careers, it was like, I could see the potential. It looks cool. I'm kind of questionable about some of the stuff that he was doing. Tyler Creator, especially, very questionable at the very beginning of his career.
Yes.
And then we're like, okay, some people kind of like doubted in a sense where it's like, oh, they're just going to become, like for Tyler, it's like, he's just going to be the oddball. He's just going to be in this weird space all the time. I don't really see how he could flip what he is doing to something else. Like, it was really hard. Like, at the beginning of the, we were talking about Goblin and shit like that. We were like, oh, this guy's like going in like an Eminem zone.
Yes.
Okay. And the same thing with Jimmy Butler is like, he was very rambunctious, right? Bouncing between teams. People couldn't handle the personality. Same thing with Tyler, the Creator.
And he was known as a defender before he became an offensive player.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's even that flip of like, then there's the sound and the play style flip, where now Jimmy Butler is like, this hard-nosed vet out here muscling people as a shooting guard, small forward, defeating the odds that people never even thought would be possible.
Yes.
Okay. Making the finals twice, right? Twice in 4 years. Once as an 8th seed coming through the play-in.
Yeah.
Okay. Nobody thought, serious. Is there a single person that thought that he were going to be in the finals last year? I don't think anybody thought that. And same thing in the year when they made it in the bubble. I don't think anybody was really picking the Heat to make it. Just like Tyler Creator, it's like 1 year, Tyler Creator's like, yeah, I'm going to drop Flower Boy. But really, when he dropped Igor, we're like, who the fuck thought Tyler Creator can make a album like Igor?
Yeah,
right?
No one saw that coming.
And nobody saw that coming. So they're both older than you think.
Yeah.
They're both older than you think, but have been able to totally carve out their own mythos, even though that there's people that are like greater than them, like your Drake, your Kendricks, your Coles, right? Carved out their own mythos, their own ethos to what they're doing. They have a very, very dedicated fan base, dedicated way of thinking.
Very singular.
Right, for both of them. Right, Jimmy Butler, Heat mentality is Heat through and through. Tyler, the Creator, you can see a Tyler Creator fan a mile away.
Yes.
Just by the way that they dress.
Yes.
So I think that Tyler Creator and Jimmy Butler, even that personality, that rough personality, they're synonymous.
I don't hate that, but I have someone who I think is better.
Okay.
To me, I think Tyler Creator is more Nikola Jokic. Because I think
okay, go ahead.
I think that Nikola Jokic was probably the most unexpected of all time, and that's kind of what Tyler is. Like, I think that to see where Tyler came from to being regarded as one of the best rappers out, period.
Yeah.
Best rappers of all time. That's Nikola Jokic, where it's like when Nikola Jokic became a starter, that was already a big deal. They traded Nurkic so he could start. That was like, okay, he's improving, kind of like where Zubac is now. And we're like, okay, this is where he'll be. For him to go from that to an all-star, an all-NBA, Draymond Green said Jokic was outrunning him last night. You know what I mean? So it's like, even the parts of his game that have grown, Jokic was a person who was afraid to shoot at one point. And he's having 30-point triple-doubles like it's nobody's business.
Yeah.
I think that's Tyler as well, where I think hip-hop fans put Tyler in a box of, okay, he's a weirdo. He does this kind of rap. He's not really for me. The people listening to Tyler now were not Tyler fans when Wolf and all that other stuff came out, And so I think there's a synonymous thing they have there of like, people were aware of them and what they could do, but everyone put a limit on both of them. I think Jokic, it was like, okay, he's never going to average this many points, or he's never going to be an all-star, or he's never going to do this. Tyler, he's never going to do any of the stuff he's done. There's never going to be an Igor, there's never going to be a Flower Boy. So I think that there's something there. I like the Tyler and Jimmy, but I would say Tyler's probably higher than Jimmy, even though Jimmy's made the finals.
Really? I don't know if that's
Tyler. Well, Tyler's a top 5 rapper like right now.
Okay.
Like he's right under the big 3. Like if you take the big 3 out of it, he's the next group. Like I think if you do the NBA ranking of players, you're getting past 10 before someone names Jimmy Butler.
But here's the thing with Jimmy Butler, nobody expects it, but he's somehow always in the finals or conference finals.
Every time,
right?
Every
so
time.
You kind of have to be like, even though it does not appear that way from the outside, that he is like top 5, top 10, He has to be because he beats everybody else to get there.
He really should be. He should be.
He's beat Giannis. He's beat Tatum. I believe they beat the Sixers, right?
Yeah.
Right? So
the East should go through Jimmy Butler.
Right? It really is.
It really should. I wonder, and maybe it's something we got some time to think about, but I think the person who would be for him is someone who we don't see them have a good album, they have a good album. You know, and they do it multiple times. I think Tyler has gotten past that after Flower Boy. After Flower Boy, it was like, okay, we expect to have a good project. Maybe not groundbreaking and life-changing, but we expect a good project. And that's basically from everybody. Jimmy Butler is like, he's the 8th season. So who's that rapper who we like, think is trash or something? And they put out a fire album. That's who Jimmy Butler is. Maybe we don't think, maybe trash is too far, but we're kind of like, he made this album?
Yeah.
Like, so I think, again, we got to figure out who that is. But I think that's Jimmy's parallel of like, who's the rapper who is good, but when they put an album out, we're always surprised it's that good.
Okay.
Because that's him in the playoffs. It's always like, yeah, we don't want to play the Heat. They're a thing to worry about. And then all of a sudden, they're in the finals.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I had another person for Nikola Jokic, but then...
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay.
Let's hear it, and then we'll move on quickly.
Okay. So I had Rod Wave.
So I had someone for Rod Wave. That's so interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have Rod Wave just by himself, alone, away from all of the discourse, away from the culture, away from even the style of music that's being made, and what he's making is different.
Yeah.
But just an enormous, like he's one of the best rappers. He's one of the biggest rappers in the genre right now. Nobody talks about him, right? In the discourse. Nobody's talking about him in the discourse. Nobody's like, oh yeah, where's Rod Wave in your top 5, top 10?
Yes.
Right? Like that's just not a discussion.
Not at all.
But silently just dominating. Silently dominating charts, silently breaking records, silently just doing everything. Super dedicated fan base. Anything he does, they are consuming it. They are listening to it. And this is just like Jokic, where it's like, Jokic, when was the last time you heard Jokic speak words? Okay.
Last week, but I'm also a Jokic fan, so.
Jokic is away from the discourse. He doesn't appear on anybody. I think he only appeared on Michael Porter Jr.'s podcast because they're on the same team.
I think you're right in the sense of like casual fans of hip hop or basketball.
Yeah.
They're not going to be on your timeline all the time. Like you're going to see, Jason Tatum or SGA more often than you're going to see Jokic on your timeline.
Right. And Jokic, he has 2 MVPs.
Yeah.
2 MVPs, probably going to win a third one. And,
I hope so.
And you're not like, oh yeah, where does Jokic rank all time? Like, no, people are
no one's having that conversation.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Nobody really is talking about that.
And that should be you're right. I think especially from the visibility standpoint, that's a good match.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you who I had for Rod Wave, and then we'll move on because it's almost the opposite of how you went with it.
Okay.
I had Kyrie Irving as Rod Wave because Kyrie Irving, especially now in this like second part of his career, he's not in the middle of the timeline anymore. You know, when something happens, he is. When he does something, he is. But most of the time, he's over here. We don't always see his highlights. He's over. That's kind of like Rod Wave. But why I thought they were a good match is because their fans are so dedicated. Kyrie was among the top players for votes at the All-Star game.
Right.
With playing a third of the games. And that's kind of how Rod Wave's fans are is Rod Wave doesn't rank super high in terms of monthly listeners. But when he does shows and when his album comes out, it's always number one. And so I think that's Kyrie in the sense of every time Kyrie's gone through some kind of turmoil, whether it's self-inflicted or something happening to him, that has not affected his popularity. Right. I remember when he was in the heart of what's going on in Brooklyn, he was top 10 in jersey sales. And then when the All-Star game came around, he was the top guard with the most votes.
Yeah.
And so that reminds me of Rod Wave of like, whatever you do, his fans will ride. And I feel like that's Kyrie Irving fans. Okay. This one, I feel like you may agree with. I think this might be the best one that I have. Is Damian Lillard is Benny the Butcher. Now,
I have a different person for Benny the Butcher. This is so crazy.
Yeah, it's so interesting. But Benny and Dame are both the underground kings. They've been grinding for a long time. The diehards are really big fans of them. And we want to see them win on the big stage. Now, Benny is joining a label, having a #1 album, #1 hits. I think hip-hop as a whole kind of wants to see Benny succeed on that bigger stage and not be an underground artist anymore. Dame, I think, is the same thing, but in terms of playoff success.
Right.
I think most NBA fans want to see Dame win a championship. Kevin Garnett compared Dame to himself. I thought that was a great comparison. I think Dame is kind of the Kevin Garnett of this era where it's like everyone wants to see them win. I think that used to be Chris Paul for the longest time. I think Chris Paul still has some of that love, but I think Dame is the new Kevin Garnett where it's like, NBA fans, die-hard, casual, you've been an NBA fan for at least the past decade, you want to see Dame win something. And I think hip-hop fans, Benny is that guy. Whether you're a huge Benny fan or not, it's just he represents the underground in that way where it's like he's the one you want to see win. I'm interested to see who you have for Benny.
Okay, for Benny the Butcher, I have Demar Derozan. Okay. Old school play style.
Okay.
Right. The streets will never forget type of person.
Yes.
Right? Both, even their personalities are actually quite similar.
Yeah.
DeMar DeRozan, not going to win MVP, right? But he will have some all-star, selections. It's like All-NBA. I believe he's been voted for All-NBA before.
All-NBA second team.
So he's had high moments, big moments, right? Every single player in the league co-signs him, whether or not personality-wise, play style. Well respected. Takes influences from the old legends. Yeah. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, et cetera, right? When I think of Benny the Butcher, old school rap style, right? Again, their personality. I think a lot of people like Benny the Butcher. And I think that his style is, drawing on the old masters. Yeah. Jay-Z. Maybe even a Jadakiss. Yeah. Right. There's a lot of pulling on the old school to old school style. Neither of them, you're not gonna see you might see Benny the Butcher win a Grammy because Grammy's on some crazy shit. You're always trying to do some crazy shit. But
you're unlikely to see him go number one.
You're not gonna see him go number one. You're not gonna see them be like, oh, look at the records that they're breaking, and stuff like that. But they would have underground kings in a way, right? DeMar DeRozan, beloved in Toronto, right? Will always have a fan base here. Everybody wants to see him succeed here. It's the same thing with Benny the Butcher. Beloved by underground hip hop, right? Everybody loves Benny the Butcher, wants to see Benny the Butcher. Dude, why did you make that face?
Something happened that's completely unrelated.
Everybody wants to see Benny the Butcher succeed. So that's it for me. I think it's DeMar DeRozan, Benny the Butcher. It's a play style, it's a personality. The harkening back to the olden days. That's it for me.
I might like yours better than mine. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think Dame is probably a higher level than Benny has reached. Yeah. I think DeMar and Benny, that's a good one. I actually like that one a lot.
Because even Damian Lillard, he made the top 75 for the NBA, in history. I don't think Benny the Butcher is making top 75 rappers.
I was going to say he might, but it's not a guarantee. Yeah. It's not a guarantee. I'm going to give my last one before we get out of here because this is the end of my list. I know you have more, so we can make that a part 3. Okay. It's going to be a part 3. It's going to be part like that shorty with the part 50.
Yeah. Oh, was it Risha Tisha?
Yeah. Yeah. That's going to be us.
Did you watch that, by the way?
I got to 3, and then I said, someone filled me in.
Yeah. I need the Sparks notes on that, bro.
Yeah. Someone needs to do a TikTok on all those TikToks.
Yeah, for real.
And just wrap it up. This person is very much we're talking about in the moment for the both of them. They're both legends. I would say they're both Hall of Fame in their craft. And that's Eminem and Russell Westbrook.
Okay.
I think that Eminem is, a living legend. That's just obvious, what he's accomplished, his skill set. But people only bring up Eminem's name to say something negative, which is the same as Westbrook, It's like, if you think about all the players this year who are breaking triple-double records, whether it's Scotty Barnes breaking the Raptors record for a season or Sabonis leading the league in triple-doubles, Westbrook averaged triple-double for 4 seasons,
right.
And it's become normal now that we just don't think about that, but we bring up Westbrook for only a negative connotation now. And I think that's kind of the same thing that they're both going through where they both are record-setting players, acts in their own right. Like, they are going to be a part of history regardless. And I think they're both going to age better for the next generation because, that kid who's just looking up stats and sees Westbrook's name popping up as the leader in scoring or the leader in assists or, averaging 8-9 rebounds for seasons on end. They're like, this is a guy they keep shitting on ESPN. And I think Eminem is the same way where, someone might not be a fan of Eminem's music, but they hear the way the internet talks about Eminem. They go back and hear his music. They're like, this is what you guys think is so trash?
Yeah.
So I think those two kind of fit in there as they're legends and as well, their peers respect them. These are two of the acts where their peers respect them way more than the internet does or the talking heads. And so I feel like Eminem and Westbrook is a good fit there.
Okay, I like that.
Mhm.
I don't even have really a rebuttal for that. I think that Eminem today is one of those like lightning rods for this criticism. Also, kind of like an artifact of a previous time, which I think is also similar with Westbrook. Like 5 years ago, Westbrook was like, "Yo, this is next level. I cannot believe he's doing shit like this." And the same thing with Eminem, where it was like in the early 2000s. You're like, dude, I can't believe somebody has this like level of skill when it comes to rapping. So I think that I like that one. I like that one a lot. I think one that I have one here that's just actually just blasphemous.
Let's hear it.
And I had to
get off your chest.
I have to okay. I'm just gonna say it. Luka Doncic and NBA Youngboy.
Like what, bro? Like, come on.
Luka Doncic putting up insane numbers, 24/7, numbers you cannot even comprehend.
This must be a basketball podcast real fast.
Cannot comprehend the numbers he is putting up. But the team, except for one season, is just like a consistent. I don't want to. Failure is a little bit strong, but I'll say underwhelming for his level of talent. Right. Consistently, I would say within the top 5, top 10 in MVP voting, right? One of the best players in the league, allegedly. I think that he's Harden 2.0, but slightly worse. And he is, he's been able to. I would say that he's been able to, do some totally overwhelming things like making the Western Conference Finals, right? But overall, I'm disappointed. I am disappointed. And then when it comes to Youngboy, when he came on the scene, it was like what the fuck is NBA Youngboy? Where did he come from? What is he doing? What's up with his name? Mm-hmm. Right? Then he had.
I remember that.
And then the NBA actually sued him or was threatening to sue him. Mm-hmm. So you had to switch up the name. Constantly putting up huge numbers. We talked about the YouTube game. Youngboy was like a chart person, right? But up until very recently, he was like always on the charts because of how well his music streamed, right? So always putting up huge numbers, right? But some would say a little bit empty calories, not winning as much as we would expect somebody that is putting up these crazy numbers, right? NBA Youngboy and a little bit of Luka Doncic, right? And we're getting to this point of like, what exactly does all of this mean? If this person never actually becomes like this huge chart topper or huge like influence musically, or is like constantly putting out albums, but it's like, do they really matter? Nobody really knows if they really matter. It's kind of like similar to Doncic to me. Is like monster stats all the time, right? But the team very rarely wins. So I'm like, is it actually, are we getting a little empty calories?
I'm avoiding going into like a 40-minute Luka Doncic monologue right here. But I would say the main difference is that Luka Doncic skill-wise is one of the best in the league. And I say NBA Youngboy is not. I think that's the clear difference there. And I agree with the disappointing because, he's had these historic seasons, historic playoffs even.
Yeah.
And, they've only been out the first round once. They did go to the Western Conference Finals, but you kind of see like, how are you breaking history every time you touch a basketball, but y'all ain't winning? I think that person is actually more Joel Embiid, if we're being real.
Okay.
Joel Embiid actually is an NBA Youngboy comparison because Joel Embiid actually shits on himself basically every playoffs. Luka has these amazing playoffs where the times that he's lost is because Kawhi is Kawhi. You know, and if there's any player to lose to, it's Kawhi. Joel Embiid losing to Trae Young is not hitting the same. You know what I mean? So I think that's the difference for me is that I understand if you're losing to Kawhi being Kawhi, what's anybody gonna do with that? And anybody's gonna lose to Kawhi being Kawhi. It's just unfortunate Kawhi got injured in the next series and not the series that you were playing in. But I think Joel Embiid will be my NBA Youngboy comparison.
Okay.
I think Joel Embiid is everything that you said, especially when you think about like empty stats. Is like, every season he's averaging 145 points, and then the playoffs come and it's not that.
Okay.
So yeah, I think Joel Embiid is a more NBA Youngboy than me. You're right, that was atrocious. You're right about that, but
I don't know if it's atrocious. I think
it is. Luka as NBA Youngboy is crazy.
You know
crazy.
What? Okay, so I was trying to think of this person, and I still can't get it. It's like Wemby. I don't think that there is really a hip hop equivalent of Wemby right now.
It's funny you said that because that was mine with Luka. I think Wemby is so young that it's like it'd be like a Bow Wow, like that would be the comparison.
Yeah.
So I use Luka as the Wemby replacement of like who's just like fucking amazing, all NBA first team in their second season type shit.
Right.
We don't have anyone like that in hip hop.
Yeah.
And I think that we haven't for quite a long time. I think that kind of hip hop prodigy, like Roddy Ricch, honestly, probably was the last person who was kind of like that.
Yeah.
Because he was so young. Like he's probably 23 now, 24 now. And he was like 18, 19, when he was really coming up. But we haven't had someone like that in a long time. And I was gonna say the track record for those guys isn't good. Yeah. Like, they don't turn into LeBron. They don't turn into what Luka is already doing. So I'm interested to see if that changes and we can have someone in the Wemby spot. But I feel like we haven't had that kind of hip hop prodigy in a long time. And even if they remain good, like I think Earl is the one from our era.
Yeah.
But
before that is Lil Wayne, probably.
Yeah, probably. Which is 90s.
Yeah, so it's a long time.
Yeah, I would say Earl is probably the one from our era. And Earl's still making great music, but Earl didn't become this star that we thought was possible. So I wonder what that is. Maybe we got to figure out why that is. Why are there not these hip hop prodigies anymore, and why have they not, kind of turned into something? I think Wayne is an anomaly where Wayne's career was headed in a certain direction, and he just said no. Yeah, and he did the right thing and kind of being like, no, I have to change the trajectory of this, and go forward. But I'd say like again, Bow Wow, Earl, Roddy Ricch, like. Bow Wow's run was good too. Bow Wow had a good run as well. But I think that we haven't seen the LeBron James equivalent. Like I guess that is Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne is the only one.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen a lot like that.
Yeah, I was trying to do current artists, right? That's why. Because we could have done, again, like a Lil Wayne or something like that or something.
Yeah, bro, not even Lil Wayne, honestly.
Or even like Nas, maybe.
Nas would be the one.
Right.
Nas would be the one. Yeah.
So, but that's the 90s. So that's a long time ago to make a reference like that. If you want to, we can say Nas and Wemby, but I'm skeptical. Like there isn't really a current hip hop artist that is like they have burst on the scene and we're like, oh shit, and that hasn't happened really recently. Like anytime that's happened with an artist, they've only been around for like a year or 2 years, and then you're like Tyreek Evans. Okay. Somebody like, I don't know, like somebody like Lil Pump is like Tyreek Evans.
Brandon Jennings.
Yeah, exactly. But Wemby is like a prodigy, actually.
And Wemby is someone who we feel super confident will be here 10 years from now.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing in hip hop where I don't think you can be confident about anyone in that kind of space. You know who's actually who was the person?
Go ahead.
And RIP to them is Mac Miller. Mac Miller was in high school when he popped off. Yeah,
true.
like when I don't say his prime because his albums continued to get better, but like when he first came out, he was in high school.
Yeah,
and it was like, okay, he's super popular, he's super talented, and he actually ended up getting better and more talented and making better music. Yeah, which is what we assume Wemby's gonna do.
Yeah, I would say that when you said RIP, I thought you were gonna say a different person. I think Pop Smoke is probably the closest thing to Wemby, where like. Pop Smoke started like Meet the Woo. Meet the Woo was the first album that came out, and he instantly became popular off of Meet the Woo.
No, he was definitely popular, but I'm thinking more of the actual like skill level and where they hang with their peers. Like if we're going popularity, Juice WRLD could be in there too, and XXX could be in there too. We're talking about like I don't know how people were saying Pop Smoke is one of the best rappers out.
Right.
You know, I don't know how.
But they were like, "What the fuck is this sound?"
Well, I think that's
the production. Yeah, the production
I
was.
think it depends on the person. I think that like there's certain people who were aware where that wasn't the reaction, but if like, you know, if you're from a different world, then you're like,
your average North American hip hop listener was not listening to drill before Pop Smoke like that. Unless you were in Brooklyn or New York, you weren't really.
I guess you're right. Maybe the casual, but
your
like,
average hip hop fan was.
I remember people
really
mentioning Pop Smoke like 3 years before he popped, and people mentioning him as like an up and coming artist. Yeah. So maybe that's just my circle, and you know we're young and hip, but you know, so
you're
it's like
young and hip. You're claiming the young and hip.
Maybe I'm young and hip, but I do think that we haven't had, because I think in hip hop it is more about popularity. But we like Juice WRLD, I think it would be close to it, but I don't think Juice WRLD was seen as like he's one of the best rappers out, even though he probably could have changed his style and hung with whoever. I think Nas is still the best one, because when Nas was coming, it was like a 17-year-old wrote this. Yeah. You know, and when's the last time we had that kind of reaction? That's why I thought of Earl, because Earl was like that, where I remember at that time, we were, you know, around the same age. The dudes who I knew who were like 10 years older than me were impressed that he was 16 rapping like that. So that's the thing. I think I'm on the lookout. Now that we've brought it up, I'm on the lookout to see who's the next, you know, prodigy of hip hop. Maybe it doesn't exist. Maybe that's a thing of the past. Because I thought of your boy, Chance the Rapper. Oh. And he doesn't count, I don't think, in this as a prodigy. Yeah. But I think it takes so.
But there was a huge fall off.
Huge fall off, which we don't hope for Wemby. Yeah. But I think it also takes hip hop a little while to catch up to how good someone is or the hype around them. I think about someone like Childish Gambino. Now, I've been a Childish Gambino fan for a long time, so I know how we were talking about him. Yeah. But it was, you know, only because the internet came out that people started giving him his credit. So I think that's a big part of it too.
Okay, so Wemby to be determined. Yes, basically. Do you have anybody else?
That was it for me. Okay, I want to hear any in the comments. I know last time everyone was too busy yelling at you about Denzel Curry and Jason Tatum,
which I was right on.
Super wrong. That was a horrible one. That was worse than any of the ones we had today. That either of us had today. That was so bad. Yeah,
it was good.
That was so bad.
I think the thing is, the Jason Tatum fans have a hard time dealing with the fact that he will probably never even be top 5 in the NBA. Like, he's not top 5 now.
No one thought Denzel Curry was. Anyways.
Yes, they did.
I want to hear what everyone has to say in the comments. If you have a good one, let us know. Like, any comparisons you have. And it doesn't have to be current players. It can be past players. I think there's some interesting stuff with past players in terms of their legacies going with rappers. So I'm interested to see what y'all come up with.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, everybody. I did have a couple of more, but I'm going to keep those in the tuck.
Part 3.
Keep those in the tuck. I had a little, analogy for Travis Scott, but I'm just going to keep that one in the...
Yeah, save that so I can have the full episode to yell at you.
It's going to keep even in the back pocket because you would not like that one.
I know.
But thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Soundbites, the portion of the podcast where we combine the music, the culture, and the internet and see how they all intertwine to create the music culture that we have today. This one was a fun one where we're talking about, the culture of hip-hop. Basketball exists in the culture of hip-hop, people. You're not aware of that. So we constantly make these analogies, constantly talk about them in a basketball and hip-hop way. It's analogous. Shout out to Allen Iverson. Okay? So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure you follow us on the interwebs at AlbumOPod, on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok. Make sure you like this video, comment, subscribe. Guys, the way that the subscriber count is starting to climb again.
It is.
Right? We had that one breakout time where it was like flying through the roof, and then I would say that we slowed, and now it's starting to climb again. Okay? So we're trying to make our way to 5,000. I want to hear from everybody in the comments. I know everybody's angry. Okay. I'm in the future, right? I'm in the future. I already know you're angry. I want to see it. I want to see it in the comments.
I want to see how angry you really are.
I want to see how upset everybody else, because I know everybody is upset by my takes. And then again, 6 months, a year goes by and you're like, oh, you know what? Demar was actually right. But you guys will never admit it. Nobody ever admits it, but I see you guys on the timeline. I see everybody on the timeline. All right, thank you everybody for tuning in to Album Mode. And Adriel, make sure you know yourself and know your worth.
Later days.